You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
My hood can't fit over my roll. Can't come out of here like a boxer. No, I think we're about ready. Juan is just waiting for a second to get that other one up and going. John K, of course, giving us the thumbs up. Shout out before we even get started today. John K, MHH, follow him on Twitter. He is the producer and the man behind the scenes. And Building the Broncos wouldn't be here without John. So, John, we appreciate you. Even though, we can see your face, they can't see you. You're definitely the heart of this show, and we appreciate you. So, Carl, now that I've, talked up John, let's give it over to you.
Well, I just wanted to say I saw that John and Justin Simmons are now like best friends.
Oh,
he got a shout out from Justin Simmons. So congrats, man. That's very cool. We're hanging out with a celebrity here tonight.
I know.
But all right. Well, welcome to Building the Broncos. I'm your host, Carl Dumler. Of course, joining me is Mr. Nick Kendell. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I had an interesting weekend. I lost my phone in the snow walking the dog. The dog's never seen snow before, and like a dog probably would do, went berserk. And I'm like, oh, this is really fun. I'll run with you. Got to my front door. I'm like, oh, my God, I don't have my phone. So, had that whole process. I was getting the shakes. Couldn't be on Twitter, although if you guys saw Broncos Twitter this weekend, maybe that was for the best. It was a little bit toxic out there. But I found my phone yesterday walking. I was like, a neighbor's like, did you ever find your phone? No. We both look on the ground. There it is. And it still works. So on the up and up. Really happy. Just feeling blessed today and happy to be here to talk football.
Well, good. That's good to hear, man. And glad you're getting some snow in the Northwest. I got snow when I was there too. I think that's the last time they had snow was when I was there. So
over a foot. It was insane. Yeah, it's not a good time. They don't have the infrastructure for snow.
Yeah, they don't. I think they only had like 4 inches when I was there, and they declared it a state of emergency.
Yeah, all the hills and like 10 snowplows for the entire Seattle area. So we stayed at home. I cooked. It was a good Valentine's Day. We've been watching The 100 on Netflix, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic show, and did a lot of football work as well. So ready to talk some takes today.
All right. Well, let's get into that. But before we do, I want to let everyone know that we have to first say hello to our presenting sponsor of today of Manscaped. Listen up, fellas. 2020 sucked, but it is 2021 now, which means it's time to embrace the new year, the new me mindset, and the best way to start cultivating that is with Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels and helping 2 million men around the world keep their male grooming on point. If you let yourself go in 2020 while in quarantine, Manscaped is here for you to reboot and stay clean and shaved in 2021.
Yeah, man, I know that a lot of people did let themselves go. I'm not speaking for myself, but, didn't really take care of the personal hygiene as much because you're staying at home. But, guys, vaccines are here. The spring's right around the corner. Things are going to start looking up. You need to take care of yourself. And if you're out in public again for the first time in a while, one of my favorite products from Manscaped is their refined cologne. I'm actually going to – I wish we had like that scratch and sniff for all the listeners out there so they can kind of get a whiff of this. But it smells really good. I'm quite excited about it. Also, this past weekend, talking about busy, I've been planning out all these backpacking trips. We put in lottery tickets for a bunch of different backcountry permits. And you bet when I could take my whole kit backcountry, I'm taking the crop mop with because I am a profuse sweater. And you guys probably didn't need to know that. But if there's ever a post-apocalyptic world, I'm going to die of dehydration within like 10 minutes. There's no doubt in my mind. And the crop mop can really help clean up some very dirty areas. So very happy about that. And it's probably my just like a weird small product that I love.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is right now you can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. Your family jewels will thank you.
Yeah, guys, that's right. Get 20% off and free shipping if you use the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. Once again, that's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com if you use the code HUDDLE. Happy Valentine's Day. I guess we got St. Patrick's Day right around the corner, and make sure you're cleaning yourself up, and that includes taking care of the boys.
All right, and also real quick, make sure that you're following us on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH. Nick Nellity's got his phone back at Nick Kendell MHH, so he can get back to tweeting left and right to anybody that messages him. Of course, John at John K MHH, and of course we have at BTB Football Pod. If you want to just tweet us here at the podcast right here, and of course at Mile High Huddle all those places you can reach out. We love to interact anytime we get. And make sure you're also heading on over to milehighhuddle.com, where we have articles galore. Like Nick said, he was working crazy on quite a few articles, and there's a lot of information out there. It's a busy time from here clear till after the draft. A couple weeks after the draft, man, this is going to be the time that you want to be tapped into milehighhuddle.com. That is a part of the Sports Illustrated and Sports Nation. And this is also, we just, like I said, we just want you to be up to date on everything that we're doing. Subscribe, like, and share our podcast that we're doing here today. That is a huge help for us. Just make sure that you don't miss out on helping us out here if you can.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right. Let's get to our topic here today. It kind of came out of left field.
Yeah, almost felt like it slipped when it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
But two teams, there's a lot of teams that are obviously interested in the quarterback market, but two that keep coming up repeatedly are the San Francisco 49ers and the Denver Broncos. And probably everybody's favorite punter, Pat McAfee, was on his show today, and he had Michael Lombardi join him. And Michael Lombardi, they were talking a little bit more about Derek Carr and the Raiders quarterback situation, but then they kind of started to pivot, like, what do you need to do to compete with the Chiefs? Obviously, if you're talking about Carr and the Raiders, you're going to pivot it to the AFC West. They talked about Herbert, but then Lombardi said that, quote, I tried to quote it here real quick, so some of these words might be a little off, but Denver is a good quarterback away from being a really good team. They have been rumored to be involved in many quarterback trades so far. They were close to making a trade, and one of the teams backed out. I think the conversation for Drew Lock being the guy is over. San Francisco and Denver are both secretly very active in the quarterback market. So what quarterback was he talking about? I heard that there was some Watson talk there. Some people have said Wentz. Some people have said Darnold. Maybe he was referring back to the Stafford deal. Not sure exactly who it is, but still, it's interesting nonetheless. So do you have any takeaways from that quote in this interview in general?
Well, it's showing Drew Lock did not do enough not to have these kind of conversations. That's the problem. I know a lot of people can point to a lot of reasons of why he had a down year, new offense coordinator, the sick bug, no offseason hardly, new players, rookies, all those kind of things. But it still comes down to he's still got to go out there and make some plays. And even at the end of the season, there were a lot of times where he was still making the exact same mistakes that he made week one. And that's not what you want to see. We talked about that. We thought he was going to struggle early in the season, but that struggle continued throughout the season. Now, there were areas that he got better at, I would say. And I mean, that can tie into kind of what Base Gase is asking here with his super chat. Really appreciate that. Sup, guys? Thoughts on dumbing the playbook for Locke and now these reports? Are you still confident Locke is quarterback week one?
Confident? I mean, the Broncos, I guess it depends on who you ask, but I would say it's a fact at this point that George Paton and the Denver Broncos front office are evaluating quarterback upgrade options, which means that they aren't sold on Drew Lock. They're not married to Drew Lock. Maybe they're dating. Yep. I wouldn't even say they're engaged, but they are definitely not, head over heels with Drew Lock. Now, that doesn't mean Drew Lock is trash. That doesn't mean they have to move on from Drew Lock no matter what. There's still plenty of positives going with Drew Lock. They have Drew Lock in their back pocket, but they are doing due diligence at the quarterback position right now in the trade market. We'll see what comes of the draft. That'll be step 2 after you get through this trade free agency market, what they're looking at there. But that's the main takeaway I get is that, they're evaluating all options. And was it like a month ago now? We came on the pod. We were talking about the top quarterbacks in the draft is when I was upstairs doing the pod. It must have been around Christmas time because it was when Queso was having a surgery. I wasn't filming the show in the basement here. But we were saying, you know what? We don't say that Drew Lock's like trash or can't do anything, but you have to do your due diligence on this quarterback class because you don't know if you have the guy or not. And right now, Peyton's following that to a T. So I know that a lot of fans and a lot of people are, they're fans for a reason, right? There's like an emotional attachment. But Peyton can't have that. He needs to evaluate all options. Drew Lock was a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL last year. You're not going to do absolute jack squat in the NFL if your quarterback's that bad. So here we are.
And the dumbing down the playbook, here's what I'll say about that. One, it showed that Shermer was willing to at least change some things up to better fit Locke.
Way less empty sets, more, just less reads out there. I mean,
right. And I think I don't think it's that Locke is dumb. I do think that it takes sometimes a little bit longer for him with information. Some guys can look at it have it memorized first time they look at it. And
Patrick Mahomes is apparently like that.
Yeah. Peyton Manning was easily that way. And I do think there are times where Locke throughout his time has relied on his God-given talents. Yeah. To be good. And I think he's learning real quick in the NFL. That is not enough. There's things that we heard of this offseason that part of why I struggle with the idea of Locke is I didn't hear the greatest rave reviews of his work ethic being put into this offseason. Now, I think he still put in work, but I'm not trying to say that he was Paxton Lynch.
Okay, you better be careful.
Yes, it was not Paxton Lynch kind of level.
Yeah,
but there was still some times where he wasn't the guy pushing the rest of the team. Hey, we've got to go do this, and you kind of want that with your quarterback. It was Peyton Manning when he walked in the building, he knew pretty much every employee's name day one of walking in that building. He lived at Dove Valley for the first 2 weeks of being in Denver because he just wanted every opportunity to learn. And so then that raised the expectations of everybody else in that building of, all right, Peyton has said it. Now everybody else go match this.
Yeah.
And Drew Lock, I think he's liked by a lot of his teammates. I think he's a fun guy, but I think they're also kind of wondering, are you the guy that's going to raise the level of everyone else in this building?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think my biggest thing coming out of this leaked information from, who was it? Tony Pauline down in Mobile is, where did this come from? And who has whatever to gain for this getting out there? And I honestly think it's coming, maybe not directly, but definitely close to, I think it's Shurmur, honestly. And you guys can say what you want about that, but I think it's coming from Shurmur. I don't think Shurmur is the biggest fan of Drew Lock. I know there's some PR talk out there where oh yeah, he really liked Drew Lock, but you're going to see that from every single, it could have been, Doodle Bob from SpongeBob come in as the offensive coordinator and they'd be like, oh, Doodle Bob loved Drew Lock when in the draft process. I don't take any stock in that. That's just PR talk to me. So I really think it's coming from Shurmur, the guy right now. And let me see, Shurmur on the guy throwing ducks to his first read. Shurmur, the guy throwing ducks to his first read. I mean, I think we're in such a dichotomized world right now. I think Shurmur and Drew Lock both deserve equal criticism and equal blame. There's plenty to go around for the offensive ineptitude. But I think it's coming from Shurmur or somebody in the Shurmur camp, personally. And I don't think Drew Lock is the best fit for the Shurmur offense. Timing, quick reads, and accuracy to the short areas of the field, that not been Drew Lock's strength. Yeah.
And Todd, I agree. There are plenty of reasons to look at and say it wasn't all Lock's fault by any means. But there are other things that you can look at. His footwork, still really, really bad. I thought he regressed actually from his rookie season to his second year. And that is something that he can work on by himself. He doesn't need a playbook. He doesn't need even coaches to be there. He can work on that himself. And he didn't, it was bad. And it led to a lot of his interceptions. Some of his interceptions were good decisions, really bad throws. Sometimes the process is good and the play ends up terrible. Sometimes the process is terrible and the play ends up good. There were a lot of plays where Locke actually made a right decision. He just didn't do what he needed to do as a quarterback, getting the ball to the right place.
Yeah, I mean, for being an athlete with arm talent that can throw it from different slots, it's pretty confusing how Locke struggles so much out of structure. I just feel like as soon as the play breaks down, he loses his damn mind, and the mechanics go to the wayside and the decision makings go to the wayside, and he puts the ball in harm's way. I mean, the Broncos led the league in turnovers last year, and I think Locke was I think he was the second highest quarterback in the NFL in giveaways, only behind Carson Wentz, and that was including Locke missing 2.5 games. You just can't put the ball in harm's way like that. You don't have the margin for error to be so turnover prone. I mean, we saw this last year. He didn't have the highs of Jameis Winston, but the difference from Jameis Winston turning it over 30 interceptions to Tom Brady, not incredible. He was still really good, but it wasn't MVP Tom Brady out there.
Right.
But he protected the football, and along with a good roster, good offense, good defense, they're Super Bowl champs. You just cannot put the ball in harm's way at the rate that Drew Lock does. Robert coming in here. Robert Caslock. Robert, we really appreciate you coming in. Yeah, you're in here fairly often. Recognize the name. No picture there in that thing. Let's see that shining face sometime. No, you don't got to do that. But we have Robert saying, so Trey Lance will solve all our problems. Carl, I'll let you take this one. I think I am definitely a Trey Lance fan and supporter and think that if you like him and he crosses the interview process, blows you away on the whiteboard, which people in the league that have worked with him or spoken with him say this guy is brilliant. But I'm going to let you answer this one.
So no, he does not solve all of our problems. He's a guy that he's got 1 year of college starting as a 19-year-old. He's got one game this last year. You could tell he was trying to press pretty hard in that game. He's realized he's got a 1 game sample size to try to really show teams why he should be, top 2, top 3 quarterback in the draft. But you're right. He's got lots and lots of intelligence from what I understand. He works hard. One of the neatest things that I read was he would do video cut-ups for all of his positional players, the wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, to show them, hey, if they're in this defense, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And he would make those cut-ups himself. There was no coach. There was no intern or anybody else doing that. He was doing all that work himself to show his team. So, no, he does not solve all the problems, but you see some of the promises of why he is maybe worth a shot. Really, at the quarterback position, if you don't know if you have your guy, you keep looking at all times. That's the thing. Now, could Drew Lock still prove to be the guy? You could take Trey Lance and still have Drew Lock. And
that was our conversation last week.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me to see Drew Lock starting this next year over Trey Lance because he still has a lot of work to do. His footwork isn't great all the time.
He needs a Patrick Mahomes season.
Yeah, he does. And if Drew Lock comes in and does a great job, well, then you got yourself a nice trade piece too. We're seeing right now quarterbacks are getting ridiculous offers right now of trade value. Sam Darnold, who has maybe played even worse than Drew Lock so far in his career, they're wanting like 2 first-round picks for him. So it's not the worst thing ever to throw some extra picks at the quarterback position and hope you can. If you got 2 of them, you're golden. You've set your team up for the future big time. The Chiefs, I mean, look at what they did. They had Alex Smith, the guy that just got him to the playoffs. They decided to trade up and get Patrick Mahomes. Now, they liked Alex Smith. There was nothing wrong with Alex Smith. They just thought, hey, this is a guy that's worth taking a risk on. Trey Lance, he's one of those guys. He's worth taking a risk. If he's there at 9, I have no problem with the Broncos taking a risk on him. I don't like the idea of trading up for him. Just that extra draft capital that you're trading, you're kind of putting a lot more eggs in the basket at that point and saying, this is our guy.
Yeah, it's the thing that makes it hard for me in Trey Lance is that he probably does need that redshirt year, and you're losing one of the biggest benefits at 1 year. That is the quarterback contract for a rookie, right? You have a huge window to compete over that quarterback rookie contract before they're due ridiculous money. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And that's something also that's I framed it on here many times, but I don't feel like the national and the local media perspective is not talking about it as much as you only have 2 years left for Drew Lock's rookie contract, and we still don't know. I mean, and then you're talking even after next year, like what's this guy's market going to be? Because he's going to need to be paid at some point, like you already lost that huge benefit where outside of Tom Brady, all the teams winning Super Bowls right now are rookie contracts. So, you're in a weird spot with Drew Lock because you still don't know. And what is that through 25 games, 18 games, something like that so far? It's not an enviable spot to be. Now, that being said, the Broncos have flexibility. Let's say Drew Lock doesn't end up the guy. It's not like you're going out there playing, God, who are the horrible Colts quarterbacks after Peyton got injured, like Curtis Painter? Like Drew Lock's going to be fine in the league for a long time. I don't think he's ever going to end up a top 10 quarterback, but I think he could be in that 20 to 30 range any given year, maybe even top 15 if you had a great team around him and kind of clicks. That's not a bad spot to be, especially with how little the Broncos are paying him. They already have him on the team, 1 in the hand's better than 2 in the bush when it comes to quarterbacks sometimes. But it just gives the Broncos a lot of flexibility. So that's probably the best thing. That flexibility is great. It means the Broncos are not desperate. And I think that's where Peyton's coming from. I mean, same with Stafford. It's like, oh, how much is it? We really like Stafford, but you know what? Going to sit this one out. Well, that's okay. And that's great.
Right. All right. Levi Hope coming in here. Really appreciate the super chat, man. Peyton clearly wants a quarterback. Where do you believe it will come from? One of these vets like Dalton, a Watson, or a young player from the draft?
I think the most likely situation right now is that the Broncos will sign a veteran quarterback that is available or will become available. I mean, we're still going to see there will be some roster cuts And there'll be guys available that we wouldn't expect because teams are going to be cap crunched. You see that guy come in and he's going to compete for Drew Lock. Drew Lock still, I think, is the highest odds on favorite to be that starter week 1, just because he's the guy here. I mean, that's just the most likely scenario. But I mean, Broncos are in on Watson. They're doing work on the quarterbacks in this class. So it could go many different directions right now, but I think probably the most likely scenario, Broncos try to accumulate some assets for 2022, 2023, bring in a veteran quarterback to compete with Lock, and then kind of just hopefully tread water and have the roster around Lock improve throughout the year and then kind of reevaluate next season. That's probably the most likely.
Right. It is. I mean, right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the Watson situation. Houston could pretty much kind of play the chicken game for a long, long time with him. And we'll see who blinks first on that kind of situation. We'll see with Dak Prescott. I mean, most are expecting that he's at least going to get tagged.
Yeah.
I doubt he's going to be available, but you just never know. The Dallas could just decide, you know what? He's not worth $40 million a year. We just can't do that to our cap situation, especially when you look at the next 3 years. It's probably going to be a pretty flat cap.
Do the Broncos have the cash to pay Dak? That's the biggest thing. If the Broncos right now, who was it? Maybe it was Ellis that said, we haven't really been impacted by the lack of ownership right now, which means that they know it's a talking point and a concern, and they're going to put out something out there. And I don't know if I'm taking him at his word or not. But in order to pay Dak Prescott, you're going to have to put a record amount of deal in escrow. And the Broncos without ownership, I just don't know if that's feasible. I don't even know if that's they could even do that. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if they really, really wanted to, they could make it work, but it's a factor. It has to be discussed.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Right. All right. We got a super chat from Mundungus coming in here.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mundungus. I saw on Facebook it was, you don't have to let us know in the chat section how old you are, but happy birthday. I hope you enjoyed some cool adult beverages to slip away into another year around going around the sun.
There we go. All right. Fitzmagic and Mac Jones. Speaking of fitting Shurmur's offense, the wizard has spoken.
I mean, Fitzmagic is a guy, which makes Fitzmagic so fun is that, and the reason that the Dolphins kept going to him is because he's making tight window throws like down the field that don't make any sense. I mean, he throws a lot of interceptions because of it, but he makes a lot of tight window throws. I mean, him and Jameis Winston are honestly playing style wise, not that different. Now, obviously there's some other things out there, but playing style wise, they're not that different. And 35, happy birthday, Mundungus. That's a good number. 35 is a good number. Congratulations to you. He's 76. Well, he's got a great beard like a 76-year-old might, 55. But anyway, I don't know if Fitzpatrick is actually a great fit for the Shurmur offense because he tries to push the ball so much. Now, granted, we have the very small sample size of Drew Lock at the beginning of this year where he was like one of the highest air yards per attempt. Not to great results, but that was kind of Shurmur maybe saying, hey, this is what the Chiefs are doing now, pushing the ball down the field. Maybe we should replicate that, and didn't work. But historically, it's been much more of a short, quicking pass game where you're getting the ball to weapons in space. Yeah.
Now, I do agree. I think Mac Jones, for the most part, there's still some throws that I worry he would struggle with when it came to the Shurmur offense, those out routes.
I think he only saw 12 throws out of the pocket this year or something. I saw some charting numbers and he went 2 games without throwing the ball over 20-yard air yards. It's just, oh man, I don't think he's the style of quarterback that fits today. We got Tim coming in. Tim, hey guys, follow Tim on Twitter as well. He is 12 followers away from 1,000. Tim, drop it in the chat there. I think it's Tim. Maybe it's just T Wens. I don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry, Tim. But having a massive project behind a project QB sure doesn't seem like the best way to ensure your future, especially if you're a coach who needs to win this year. I think this is something we talked about last week, and it's a good point. If you draft Trey Lance, you are saying, listen, Vic, unless the team all out mutinies you, we're going to bring you back. I mean, obviously you can't just totally tank, even though, you're using a pick on a developmental quarterback, but we're going to give you a little bit more leeway. So Joe Harrington saying taking Lance would be the dumbest thing to do. You know what? I was really against Josh Allen for many of the same reasons that people are against Trey Lance. Just for the inconsistencies on tape and questions about accuracy, not protecting the football, but just kind of those things. Oh, can he develop? Blah, blah. He's got all these tools, but he's not accurate. Blah, blah, blah. Tools matter. Tools matter for a quarterback. And so if they love him, Go for it. And we got Muhammad coming in. He always loves that number 1 peach. I think there's one where it shows off its nice voluptuous back as well. Oh yeah, excuse me, pear, exactly. But thank you very much, Muhammad. Number 1 fan coming in. He's calling me Bronn from Game of Thrones these days, which I'm appreciating because I always thought Bronn was one of the funnier characters. Quick wit, that's what I'm all about. Despite what my wife would say. And we got Terry Randall too. Terry, he's right. It has been a minute. Terry, don't be a stranger. We love you. Been a minute. Hashtag State of Being. We appreciate that very much, Terry. Hope you're doing well. Staying safe. And Madunga's coming in. Hey, Terry. So yeah, I guess we'll come in a little bit more. Do we want to have this Mac Jones conversation? Is this a good time to have the Mac Jones conversation?
I don't know. Let's see. We got a lot of super chats here. Let's get through some of them, and then we can really, if we got time there at the end, we'll kind of dig into him. We're gonna have plenty of time. Yeah, we've got a couple months here before the draft to kind of dig into that kind of conversation and really deep dive into some of these quarterbacks and our thoughts on them. But so we got Jess C13 coming in. Really appreciate that. We got a much love, guys. Go Broncos. Thumbs up. Giving you a thumbs up right back at you. And appreciate the super chat and appreciate you tuning in here for our show. It's like I said, Tuesdays are one of my favorite times. I was a little nervous. I was trying to bring food back from another town and a bunch of boxes. We lost boxes last week going down the highway, and I was worried that was going to happen again this week. And thankfully we made it, got all the boxes out just in time so I could come here and do the show.
Well, that's great to hear, Carl. I know you've been pressing with some of that and having some issues, so that's great to hear you're doing some good work out there for the community. We got Jim coming in as well. Jim's always a good supporter of the show, and he says, I can't see any QB doing that well under Shermer, and that's one of the things about Shermer that just concerns me. I feel like he's running a early 2000s offense. You know, like if you're not utilizing your quarterback's athleticism and arm talent, then that doesn't fit your scheme. Your scheme might be outdated. But thank you very, Jim. And also he says, click those thumbs up. We're only at 24 right now. Great number. I love it. You know, Champ Bailey, best cornerback I ever saw play. Let's get it up to like Bradley Chubb. That'd be awesome. You know, 55 would be great. So we do appreciate that a lot. Let me see. I saw another super here. Let me click here for a second. Okay. We got this one right here from Alexander Lester with the Euro coming over from across the pond. We really appreciate it, Alexander. And a cool little picture there as well. Also a science guy. So I love this. A biochemistry PhD student, UK. Hats off to you, doing Lord's work. So loves Nick's analytical science view on the Broncos. Keep up the great work, guys. Locke and Dalton, aggressive, not reckless. The Locke and Dalton conversation is like you get a menu at a restaurant, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, all this great stuff. Here's for dessert. We got tapioca pudding. You know, it's like, oh, yeah. Okay. You know, like I see that table over there got Deshaun Watson. I'm really curious if you still have that on the menu. That was the last one. Okay, I guess I'll take the Andy Dalton tapioca pudding. But he's right. It's about flexibility. And that's something it sounds like from talking with people closer to the situation in Dove Valley than myself, that the Broncos and Peyton really value that flexibility and accumulating those resources. So while maybe, and there's still a chance that Locke becomes the guy. There is. I would say it's probably like a 10 to 15% chance given where we're at to date, which is not great, but it's also not zero. So if this season is, you know, we're going to go with Locke again, we're going to bring in a veteran to make him earn it and then reassess next year. There are worse places to be. No, there are teams that are like built beautifully right now, ready to go, like the Colts. What the effing H are they going to do? Right? They're in trouble. They're a team that like might have to be aggressive to bordering on reckless because that roster is good to go. And it's too good to get in that area, that top 10 pick. So now, Broncos are in an okay spot.
Now I will say in this kind of, I told John earlier, he'd asked me about what subject we were going to talk about before the Michael Lombardi thing came out. I said, we should talk about the Mike Clay grading chart.
Yes.
I thought that was a really neat thing. He does this every single year where he grades every roster and he grades each position, giving them a grade from 0.1 clear up to 4. 4 being the best. It's like
your grade point average.
Yep.
4.0 is an A. The best A you can get. So
So like Patrick Mahomes gets a 4.0, then, you know, kind of goes down from there. There's only one 4.0. There's not like multiple guys that are getting that. And he had the Broncos ranked as the 12th best situation, at least roster wise, of any team in the NFL. Now he had quarterback 5th worst or 6th worst. Can't remember. It's right 5th or 6th. And the other ones are all teams that are looking for quarterback. So
Mike Clay has been very harsh about Drew Lock in the past.
Yeah.
So there's probably a little bit of Tim coming in at Lawyer Up 406. Come on, Nick. Tim, I apologize. You're a beautiful man. I love you. But that's that. There you go. Follow him. Get him to 1,000. Why not? Let's do it. I definitely think that's a good point, Carl. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Let me see. We got a few more. Everybody coming in here. Happy birthday, Madungus. Let's happy birthday, Madungus. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get it. Okay. Oh, speaking of which, negative 25 degrees outside and rolling blackouts. It's been great. You know what? I was complaining about the snow up here in Seattle, but it's supposed to be like 40 to 50 this week, and everybody else is dealing with unbelievable cold weather. So,
yeah,
I won't get on the science high horse here, but let's do it.
Yeah, it's been cold where I'm at. Obviously, you know that. We were worried about whether I was even going to make the show because of those rolling blackouts. So anybody out there that's in this 14-state area, be careful. Texas, Oklahoma, I know you guys have gotten hit pretty hard.
Make smart decisions.
Yep.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
And also I saw one earlier from DNV3. He asked about taking Jamie Newman over Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a difference, and I think it's a nuanced conversation that everybody should have where it's kind of like bargains versus like value, right? So like I would take Mac Jones in a vacuum over Jamie Newman, even though he doesn't have the tools that Jamie Newman does. However, Mac Jones at 9 overall versus Jamie Newman in the 4th round, that's the conversation we need to be having. That, honestly, the one I'm interested in is more Davis Mills round 3 versus Mac Jones round 1, or Kellen Mond round 4, et cetera. That's the conversation we need to be having because no doubt Mac Jones is going to go in the 1st. There's too many quarterback needy teams, especially ones that need somebody who can step in and run an offense day one, which Mac Jones can do. But would I rather do that where the Broncos are, who already have Drew Lock, right? Who's, again, you're looking to improve, but still, we got Davis Mills coming in. That's how I want to go in for it. So that's kind of the conversation. It's all about playing the value game. That's what the draft is all about. That's why people are like, oh, why don't you take a center or a running back round 1? Play the value game. We have so much data there with, edge rushers, offensive tackles, cornerbacks, quarterbacks, round 1 positions. You're not finding them later typically. So John Houston coming in here. We appreciate it. What's Davis Mills' ceiling and draft round? I think first we need to talk Davis Mills in a vacuum. He was the number 1 pocket passer in that quarterback class. Trevor Lawrence and also Justin Fields were dual passers or dual quarterback threats or whatever. So not categorized the same. Davis Mills was a pocket passer. Has only played like 15 games in college. Got a little bit gypped because of how the Pac-12 was set up this year. Had some injuries, obviously fighting with KJ Costello before that. There's a lot of high-end traits out there. He makes decisions quickly. He gets rid of the ball well. He throws a very pretty football. It's kind of the same thing with Mac Jones, though, where he's very pocket limited. If it's not in structure, I'm not sure what he's doing. But that said, if you can get that guy round 3 and he fits your offensive structure, go for it. I mean, there's risk there, no doubt. But I see a lot of Jared Goff in his game, which, am I looking to build my team around Jared Goff? Probably not in an ideal world. Can I get it done with Jared Goff? I think you could build a team that could.
Well, especially on a rookie contract.
Yes. Carl, I love you. That was it. Okay. Moving on. Carl and Braun in the house. Mohammed Badri. So we appreciate it so much, Mohammed. Also, keep atting us on Twitter, man. We love having the conversations with you on there. And thank you for the positive shout out. Speaking of positive shout out, Dennis Woods. Thank you too. Appreciate you. Dennis, we appreciate you. That's a very handsome goatee there. I keep teasing the wife. I'm going to do the goatee. She's like, don't do it. Then it's going to be the Fu Manchu mustache. I'll divorce you. So I got to do something.
I'm thinking about doing the monkey tail.
Carl, do it. If you guys haven't seen the monkey tail, we need to get some supers in here to get Carl to do the monkey tail because that would be incredible. Maybe we should set up some sort of like draft game where if the Broncos do something in the draft, then you have to do the monkey tail for one of the episodes. I'm in.
I'm willing to do that.
Oh my God, that would be so amazing. Patrick McCracken coming in here. Patrick, what's McCrackalacken? Dad joke. Sorry, Carl. I'll leave that to you next time. Need to take defense at 9. This is an interesting conversation with defense at 9, just because, and this is something I wish people had a better grasp on. Now you're here to obviously get these enlightened takes. That's why we're the experts, right? Experts. But this year, I think people a lot of times will think of a draft in a vacuum, like every single draft is the same. where in reality, every single year has its own individual class. Do you remember that 2019 draft class where there was 3-4 incredible interior defensive linemen? Broncos were able to get Draymond Jones in the third round.
Yep.
Draymond Jones might go in the first round this year because teams are so freaking desperate for interior defensive linemen in a class that there just isn't dudes.
Right.
In that class, you had Ed Oliver, you had Quinnen Williams, you had Jeffrey Simmons, you had Christian Wilkinson, you had Dexter Lawrence. This class at interior defensive line is trash. So you can't say linebacker or defensive tackle 1 year is the same as the next. Look at the 2011 draft versus the 2013, the hit rates there. Every single class is its own class. So having to take defense at 9, I think it's a possibility for the Broncos. I don't like the top of this defensive class. There's just not many blue chip and defensive guys. All of them have questions to me.
Right. Well, and so many of them opted out of the season, the top guys.
Yes.
Really, the only top guy that you have that played this season was Patrick Surtain. So
and is he a top guy?
Well, I know, and that's the question. Is you got other guys who have greater traits, but also had questions even before opting out. And of course, Micah Parsons, great traits, great traits. Some major red flags all over the place for that guy. So there's still some offensive guys that if they are there at 9 and the Broncos can't trade back, I'm willing to take. I mean, if Sewell falls there, man, I'm running to the podium for that guy. You got Bulls on one side, Sewell on the other. That is going to be one of the most dominant offensive lines. We're talking about just what happened for Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah.
They took
and if
a right
tackle. Tackle, he's going to be a great guard. He was actually recruited as a guard. Did you know that?
I think you've told me that.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, I think you have to let him try at tackle first.
Right.
And he'd be fine at right tackle.
Right. But I'm just saying that there are still some players on offense. If they are there, it's hard to want to pass on them. Even some weapons. Now, I know the Broncos are pretty set at weapons, but there are some really intriguing guys this draft. Waddle.
That's what makes it so hard, man.
You know how much I love Waddle. He's my number one wide receiver.
If the Broncos lost to the Raiders week 17 last year and they could have taken Tristan Wirfs and we could have talked about the wide receivers that could be at 9, we'd be in heaven. I mean, really, it didn't work out that way. I still really wish we'd have gotten Tristan Wirfs. I'm happy about Judy. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm excited about Judy, but man, I loved Tristan Wirfs, and now he's like playing Hall of Fame level his rookie year. What do you know?
Right.
Kyle Pitts. That's the interesting one. Don't shake your head at me there, John, in the background. Kyle Pitts. We're going to have to, at some point, we got 68 days until the draft, something like that. We're going to have a conversation about Kyle Pitts at some point. It does seem like he is, even though he's a tight end, the general consensus is he's being pushed up. There's some talk with Atlanta. There's a lot of talk with the Bengals. I mean, let's say, Carl, what would you prefer? You need weapons for Joe Burrow, no doubt.
Yeah.
Let's say Sewell's gone at 5.
Yep.
And he was your guy. Are you taking Slater, who might be a guard or a tackle? Or are you taking and then a weapon round 2? Or are you getting Kyle Pitts at 5 and then one of the offensive tackles that's going to be there for a pick, 35, 36?
Yeah.
It's the value game.
Yeah, it is. And I really like, and part of it is, though, offensive tackle and wide receiver are pretty deep in this draft.
Yes.
So
I think the offensive tackles are going to fly off, though. Like pick 20 or 15 through 40. It's going to be like
true.
30
That's
picks.
True. So maybe that's why you decide to go that direction of take an offensive tackle, even though maybe you have another guy rated a little bit higher, just because you know the drop-off is going to happen pretty quick once those guys start going. But you're right. Kyle Pitts, he's a generational talent.
He is probably him and Trevor Lawrence are the only two true like blue chippers in this class in my book. Sewell as well, although it sounds like the NFL is not as high on him. I think Sewell as an offensive lineman it's just not a guarantee that he sticks at tackle. But Pitts is he's the best tight end prospect since Vernon Davis. Now we know Vernon Davis didn't work out, but you're talking about just a phenom. And I've never seen a tight end dominate like he did.
And
never.
Let me get this, Joe. I don't think the Broncos would take wide receiver, and I probably wouldn't either. But it's just hard because, unfortunately, this draft, where the talent is possibly going to be at for 9, where real great value is going to be, is wide receiver, is tight end. If Pitts falls that fall, so it's just kind of it's just not a great setup for the Broncos. Like you said, there's a lot of risk with the top defensive players in this draft. When you're looking at a Farley, when you're looking at a Micah Parsons, when you're looking at even the the edge guys, none of them really feel like they're top 10 talent wise. This is that first draft in a while that we haven't really had that premier edge rusher that everybody's going, that's the guy that's going to have to go top 5. There isn't one in this draft. So it is Casey Martin coming in. This is a great year to trade that pick. You got to have somebody that's willing to come up.
Yeah, so that means you have to have
part.
That depends on the quarterbacks as well, right? Like it's a deep wide receiver year. There are the obvious big 3 with Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle. But is somebody going to be like, you know what? I want those. I like those guys so much more that I'm willing to give up extra capital to go get them rather than Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, et cetera in the back end. I don't know. I don't think people will value them to that extent. Yeah. So really it's going to depend on the quarterbacks. If Justin Fields or Trey Lance is there, then it could happen. But we'll get to that in a second. Dennis Wood's coming in here. Where do the Broncos finish next year to warrant keeping Locke? That's obviously a complicated question because the team could be really good and they could win 8-9 games and it could be in spite of Locke. Yeah. You know, like that right. happens. The Broncos made the playoffs in whatever year it was, and this might be inflammatory to some people, but like the, 2011 with Tim Tebow?
Yep.
Did they make it that far because of Tim Tebow's passing? It was a good team. Peyton Manning wasn't dumb. You know, Peyton Manning picked the Broncos for a reason. Same reason Tom Brady picked the Buccaneers for a reason. You know, he saw what was there and what they were doing despite the limitations of the quarterback position. So it really comes down to what Locke looks like and what the tape looks like and the circumstances surrounding that.
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like Watson this year. He still played like a top 4 quarterback, but his team was terrible. Yeah. So this is where quarterback wins is not a real stat. And I think sometimes we can get wrapped up too much in it. I mean, Mitch Trubisky made the playoffs. He's going to be trying to find a new home. He wasn't enough. So You're right. You can win in spite of the quarterback, or you can lose even though you have a great quarterback playing well. Right. And Andrew Luck, he had some really bad teams around him for a while there in Indianapolis. It just stinks that they finally got a good team and he was so banged up he just decided he was done.
Two of my best 2 friends are both best men at my wedding, big Colts fans. They text me about Andrew Luck every day saying, can we come back? I wanted to get to this one real quick just because it was a conversation we were talking about before we got to that last comment. Robert Caslow, if Fields and Lance are there at 9, what would be a good trade package for a trade back? It really depends on how far you're trading back. I mean, trading back to wherever the Bears are picking, 22, the Washington football team at 19, or San Francisco at 12. I mean, how far back you're moving changes things a lot. If I am moving back, I'm looking for a first-round pick back this year. Hopefully a first-round pick next year. It depends on how far back you're moving. But if not, I'm looking for probably a round 2 pick this year and either a round 1 or 2 next year. But it really depends. I mean, difference between falling to 12 to 22 is huge.
Right. Well, and also trades, it all depends on how many bidders you get.
Yeah.
You know, quarterbacks cause the price to go up. Washington, when they went from 6 to 2, trading 3 first-round picks, second-round pick, was it 2 second-round picks?
It was a lot.
I mean, it was a lot. But they only do that for a quarterback. And if Fields and Lance are there, you know, you might have – if they're both there, you're going to have some teams that are going to drop out. They're just going to be like, all right, this is getting too rich. I'll just wait for the next one at pick 10 and start the bidding all over again.
I don't think it's that simple though, because a lot of teams are going to have their guy for their scheme. You know, they're not as like open net as the fan perception is. So.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I will say though, I would probably cry if the Broncos passed on Justin Fields at 9.
I think he's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
I really do. I would be if he's there at 3 and I was in charge, I'd be calling. But we got Jay Silos coming in here. JC Horn, if we trade back, okay. Eric might get really mad at me for this. I really like JC Horn in a vacuum. I really do not like him for the Vic Fangio scheme. I think he is a press guy through and through, and I think there's a good chance that he leads the league in penalty yards next year because of how grabby he is and how easily you can get incredible yardage and penalties with defensive pass interference. Watch him against Elijah Moore. Dude cooked him. Absolutely cooked him. I know he had that really good game against Seth Williams and Auburn. I think JC Horn's a good cornerback, but don't get me wrong. But I think press man scheme, much more interested. The off man with the patience to hang with guys. He's just so grabby. I don't know. I love his swag. He's a fun player, likes to chirp a lot. That's all about that cornerbacks chirping. That's the first thing I remember about Jair Alexander. That dude is talking a mad storm. I love it. JC Horn, he just scares me.
Yeah. I'm with you there. And my biggest issue is the type of wide receivers he'd be facing in Denver. The Tyreek Hills, the Henry Ruggs kind of receivers. He was great against the big guys where he could fight them. And I mean, he, like you said, he's a fighter. He's aggressive. He's not afraid to, to fight for that football, to knock it out. Those kind of guys, the Mike Williams kind of guys. I would love JC Horn on Mike Williams one-on-one. I think that'd be a great matchup, and I think he would win it. But it just, I don't think he, like you said, he's not a great fit for the scheme, and I don't think he's a great fit for the kind of players that you're going to have to line him up one-on-one.
And sometimes I wish I was a little bit more bold with some of it takes, but sometimes I'm like, am I an idiot for thinking this? And I need somebody with a little bit more clout to say it before, like, okay, I feel good about myself now. Greg Newsome. Daniel Jeremiah had him 22 overall on his mock draft that was released today. Yep. I like Greg Newsome for the scheme more than I like JC Horn or Patrick Surtain. Yep. Now in a vacuum, I'm probably taking those guys over Newsome, but if we're talking pure scheme fit, I love Newsome. Yeah. And he's getting a lot of steam, which is both like, okay, that means that my eyes were not lying to me. Like I was seeing it. I'm like, this guy's really good. Why is people are not talking about him? And then I was projecting him second, third round on my mocks. Like, oh, I can put him in there. This is great. Blah, blah, blah. I feel the same way about Ronnie Perkins, who he had going over Azeez Ojulari. Now it's like, well, my eyes weren't deceiving me, but now I cannot really justify putting those guys round 2, round 3 in my mocks.
All right, well, let's get to Bobby's question here, or not question, or comments, because
on the calendar she gave me.
Yes, mine's. Let me grab that. Oh,
hey,
there we go. Got it right here. So thank you very much. I got that. Always get to see it every single day. But hey, Carl and Nick, I know it's been a long time since I catch you guys live. Can't stay. Thanks for the great work. We really appreciate it. And that's a great picture. Love it.
Thank you so much.
But no, you're right. Eric, we have a big chat that we have for a few of us from MHH. And he'd ask a question, kind of if the Broncos take this player in round 1, kind of a guy maybe you don't like as much, but if they got this other guy in round 2, you could be okay with it. And I said if they took a pass rusher at pick 9, I could be okay with it if they got Newsome in round 2 because I love Newsome. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I like his game a lot. I think he is that great fit. I think he's smooth. I think he can do a lot of things that you really want to see out of this defense.
Very smart off coverage. He wasn't as great in 2019, which is worth noting. But, I mean, he could be the 4th cornerback off the board. Here we go. Brian Greenfield coming in. Would you guys trade up for Fields? If so, how far? If he's your dude, you probably start calling at 2, right? Like Trevor Lawrence is unattainable. Probably the Jets are going to stick at 2 and take Zach Wilson. That's just, it sounds more and more probable by the day. So 3 is where you really have a chance. Are you willing to give up your 2022 first to move up for Justin Fields? I guess that's the real question here, Carl.
Yes,
you are.
Yes, I'm willing to. I'm willing to use my 1st and 2nd round pick this year, 1st and 2nd round pick next year.
Wow, that's bold.
It is.
That doesn't have a lot of money.
I really like Justin Fields. Like I said, I think he's smarter than a lot of people give him credit for. He's got that athleticism that just jumps off the page. I mean, you talk about Patrick Mahomes running around in the backfield and then making ridiculous plays down the field. Justin Fields has been doing that the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. Him playing through some of the injuries, because he had that really bad rib injury, and to play through that and to keep being willing to run with the football. But he was smart with it. Like after the injury, he was like, okay, sometimes I got to run out of bounds. Sometimes I got to slide, all those kind of things. He was smart. I just was really impressed. And then pinpoint accuracy, the guy was just lighting things up. He had a couple bad games here and there. I think he was pressing a little bit this year, just knowing that he had the shorter schedule. And I think that did hurt him, especially when you're talking about the national championship, where Alabama had a lot more games under their belt, and Ohio State just didn't look like they were up to the challenge. But I would say Justin Fields was the one guy that you saw that was really keeping them in that game. He was the only reason that they stood a chance at any point in that game because of some of the things he was doing.
Put some respect on Jeremy Ruckert's name. Tight end. He had a good game too.
Yes, you're right. But no, he made some NFL type throws, and especially those last couple games. I just think he's a gamer. I think he would just be a day one impact player. I think the Broncos, even with him as a rookie, would be playoff contenders right off the bat.
And again, Drew Lock only has 2 years left. He's still an unknown. You get 5 years with that quarterback in Justin Fields. So I'll come out and say it. Justin Fields is my number 2 quarterback. I have him over Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's had shoulder injuries on both of them. I think surgery that was required on one of them with a very skinny frame. I don't know. That's concerning to me. He obviously has great arm talent and he could be great. I just trust the overall sample size and the athleticism of Justin Fields a little bit more. But they're neck and neck. It's like 2A and 2B. Man, I could be easily convinced tomorrow. I'd flip it. But right now I would say Fields is my number 2. Terry Randall coming in. Pick the 6 QB. I think that'll be Davis Mills. Do you think somebody goes with him in the second round though? Like you can't imagine a whole round with no quarterback being picked, right?
Well, it's happened before.
Yeah, it just seems improbable.
Usually after those top guys, there is kind of that drop off of everybody going, okay, these guys aren't even worth my time. So
that's the big thing though with quarterback. Like at this point, you're not. If the Broncos had like Matt Stafford, then you can kind of go for those like, hey, lottery ticket, maybe this guy will develop. But that's not the situation the Broncos in. I really feel like if you're not, thank you, Jeremy. I don't know what he was saying insane too, but we appreciate it. Does that make me crazy? But I think quarterback is that position right now, and the NFL is getting so good at evaluating those guys that those ones that are not great are falling through the cracks less and less. I mean, really, how many great quarterbacks have been drafted still starting outside of round 1 in the last 5 years, right? Like it's Dak Prescott, and then it is Derek Carr, and that's probably over 5 years ago now, right? Like, are there any others? I can't really think of any that have been drafted outside of the first round that have been like, that's a franchise quarterback, not maximizing them for a little window on a rookie contract. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Colin Kaepernick running there for a little bit, but I'm talking about like a guy who's like, this guy's a franchise quarterback. Somebody in the comments get to me. I mean, I can only think of Derek Carr and Dak Prescott. We got Lucas coming in. He's asked a few times. We need to get to this one from Lucas. Thank you so much. Quan Short or JJ Watt would make a move, and Isaiah Wilson. Not sure about Isaiah Wilson. Quan Short and JJ Watt. This is interesting. My understanding is the Broncos are going to go after Shelby Harris first. They've been in contract with him. They'd like to bring him back. If that falls through, I guess something could happen, but it does seem like the Broncos are going to more so prioritize their own guys.
Yep.
Oh, Isaiah Wilson. Yes. Oh, Isaiah Wilson.
You liked him a lot.
Oh, I mean, I thought he was worth a shot. I wouldn't say that. Eric was on him before I was. I was saying, that guy, pretty solid, but sounds like he's got some maturity issues. That's the best way I can put it. And that concerns me greatly. And you already have one right tackle who you're not sure you can count on. Do you want to send a pick for another one?
Right.
I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I wouldn't trade for him. He's got some talent, but I'd let somebody else take a risk on him at this point. I'd rather use a draft pick on a guy that's a rookie, get him on his rookie contract and see what you can do with him. I liked him in the draft too. Talent wise, he was good, but it's just too many question marks there to really continue with him.
Yeah, I agree with you. We got DNV3 coming in here. If we could trade back into late 20s and grab Ronnie Perkins or Jalen Phillips, that would be nice. Both of these guys, I love their tape. Both of them have stuff outside the tape that is concerning. Perkins was suspended this year for 2 games, I think. There are some off-field concerns. And Jalen Phillips has had concussions to the point where when he was at UCLA, they said, you have to medically retire. And then he transferred and came back, but he could be one concussion away from being out of the game. Also, he loves music. He's already been producing music. So, if he has that injury, it's possible that he could just say, I got my guarantees. I'm out of here. So there's concerns.
Yeah. What about Rousseau? If he falls that far, he's worth the risk at that point. I don't know. He's a tough evaluation because, again, he sat out this year. He looked great last year, but
his stats look great.
That's a great point. He had some big plays, but it was too far in between plays. There's there was a lot of plays that he really disappeared. Just his frame I'd want to see how he's filled out over the season.
He was at the Senior Bowl, and apparently scouts and whatnot were oohing and awing over him. Like he's up like 275. Like he's out there looking like an offensive tackle. But what is that? Where does that play? Is it going to be a 5 tech? Is it going to be an inside-outside guy? I mean, I think the ideal scenario is Calais Campbell, but you're really projecting there. And Calais Campbell was like a freak athlete at his size too. Like you seen Calais Campbell Miami highlights? It doesn't make sense. I don't know how he fell to the second round. Stupid. Yeah. I think we have a couple more supers in here still. Let's see if John was mouthing something to me there for a second. Okay, Onwuzurike also looks like a good building block. Onwuzurike, I thought there was a lot of hype with him coming into the Senior Bowl, and I did not think he lived up to it. He looks a lot like Draymond Jones, but he is far less consistent. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm that interested. I'm not interested in this interior defensive lineman class outside of Davion Nixon because go Hawkeyes, had to get that out there. In general, really. I don't think it's that. It's probably the worst interior defensive lineman class I can ever recall.
Yeah. You don't want the Alabama guy?
Christian Barmore, I mean, he looked incredible against Notre Dame, and he was good against Ohio State, but the rest of the year it was really lacking. I mean, he's got a lot of tools, but it's I'm getting Jeremy Tillery vibes. Cool frame, upside. How's your leverage? How consistent are you? It's just like, can he two gap? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of concerns that round 2, sign me up. Somebody's going to take him top 20. That's way too expensive for me. Way too expensive. So let's get back to this Mac Jones conversation, because I feel like there's all of a sudden this push for Mac Jones, and I won't have it. No, I think Mac Jones is going to be a fine quarterback. I think he is an okay fit for the Shermer offense too. At 9 overall, though, I don't get it, Carl. How many good young quarterbacks are there right now that have the physical limitations that Mac Jones possesses? I mean,
nobody.
Jared Goff, maybe. Baker Mayfield is a pocket quarterback, but he can make plays out of structure, and he has a good arm. I mean, Baker Mayfield's that's probably the biggest thing underrated for him. That dude can whip it. Yeah. I don't see that with Mac Jones. I see Kyle Orton, which Kyle Orton got paid in the league for a long time, but first round pick, top 10 pick, miss me with that.
Right. And I will say, even there with Baker Mayfield, there's some talk of Cleveland questioning whether they should give him a second contract. So, I like Baker Mayfield, and if he hits the market, I wouldn't mind the Broncos going after him one bit. I really liked him in that draft. I've talked about him being down there at the Senior Bowl. Everybody gravitated to that guy. He had that swag that you really look for, but you're seeing more and more with these quarterbacks. You need something a little bit more.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Doug Farrer? Doug Farrer? He writes for NFL Wire. He's been an NFL writer for years. He had a really good piece. I recommend you guys go check it out about how Mac Jones is a good statistical quarterback and could probably fit some schemes, but he is an anomaly and potentially a dinosaur at this point. Yeah. And if he had come out 20 years ago, you could be arguing like, hey, he's similar to Phillip Rivers. There's some dude can't move off the spot, but he can get rid of the ball and put it in good spots. I mean, he only had 44 tight window throws this year. So I'm not sure how much he's pressing windows. If he can press windows, something we just don't know. He made only 20 plays out of the pocket this year. Can you win that way in today's NFL?
Right. No, you're right. It's the game has completely changed. John and I talked about it the other day. Obviously we love seeing the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Brees kind of guys that won with their mind. It was beautiful football, but it's just not the NFL today. It is guys that have to make some plays with their feet. Yeah, the NFL has adopted, and this is what happens. They look at the college game, and they're usually about 10 to 15 years behind the college game. And they've seen, okay, spread teams out. They don't have enough guys that can cover all the speed and athleticism that's coming out at the wide receiver and tight end position. Get a quarterback that makes them have to respect that he could take off running, or that he can run around and make a play that should have ended after 2 or 3 seconds, turn into a 6 or 7 second play. And there's no way even the greatest secondaries can't hold up for that long. Yeah, they'll eventually break down. And just that's the NFL game today. And
I think a big part is playing beyond the X's and O's too. When it's not right, that guy can still make it right. Right. And it keeps you on target. And also one of my favorite things about watching Aaron Rodgers over these years is that the explosive plays come from those broken plays. And, it's not just about matriculating the ball on the field. It is way more like creating chunk yards, because those are likely to be touchdowns. I mean, we're seeing all these teams are adopting the Vic Fangio defense. Guess what's really hard to do against the Vic Fangio defense? Score in the red zone. You know what that means? You need to be able to score from 40 yards out, which means create explosive pass plays. And if you have a pure pocket quarterback that can create outside of structure and the first guy missed, you're just limiting the explosive plays so much. And then you have to have a good offensive line every single year. They're only using their weapons. I mean, I don't know if that's the thing this day. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
We got to get to Brian here.
Yeah, I was going to say, and Nick, I think you turned into a robot there a little bit.
Oh, no.
I know. Hopefully it doesn't continue on. But I'll read this one. Brian Greenfield coming out with the super chat. If you give up 2 first picks and 2 seconds, why not go after Zach Wilson? Well, I would too. I would do it for him too. I think both those guys really stand a good chance of being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I think Zach Wilson is a great fit for the Pat Shurmur kind of offense, where he can get the ball out of his hands real quick, get it to the playmakers, let them go make plays, but he can also make plays out of structure when needed. I think he would be a great fit that way. So either guy, I just right now, things that we are hearing is that Trevor Lawrence, of course, is going to go number 1 overall. I think that you could pretty much write that in pen. You can write it in rock, whatever you want to do. That's going to be what's happening. And at number 2, the Jets seem to have figured out very good chance they are not going to get Deshaun Watson. And so they are moving on to their plan B, which is Zach Wilson. They just really like his game, like what's going on. So I just think that that's going to be the direction that they go in that with that. So then that kind of leaves then pick number 3, like Nick said. That's why we talked about Justin Fields. I just don't think that you can trade up enough to get Zach Wilson. The Jets just really, really like him.
Yeah, and that's out or lagging. So right now. So I'm going to let you go since we're at an hour.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll close this out here. Really appreciate everyone tuning in here for another episode of Building the Broncos. Just always a great time with everyone. Make sure that you are following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH, Nick at Nick Kendell MHH, and of course John at John K MHH. Make sure on YouTube and Facebook, if you can like, share, and subscribe, we really, really appreciate it. I know you can't share on Facebook completely, but yeah, on YouTube, make sure you guys are out there doing that. I guess you can do that on Facebook too. But we really appreciate that. It helps us out so much. Thank you again, guys, for joining us and talking some football. It's just going to be a great offseason. So make sure that you are heading over to milehighhuddle.com and checking out all the articles. I know Nick has a couple new ones out there from this weekend. So I know then Chad just put one out on the exact same topic that we just talked about here today. So you can go and check out the interview. So again, head on over there, check everything out. Otherwise, we just appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you guys next week here for Building the Broncos. Go Broncos.
Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.